Hello and welcome to, I guess, a news update podcast that me and Stevie are doing. Um, it's a little after 4 o'clock, and Rangers have just released a chairman's update from our interim chairman, Stevie. And we recommend that folk go and check out the full statement themselves. We'll put a link to it in the description below if folk haven't seen it. But your immediate reactions to the statement, which covered a fair amount of ground.
Yeah, look, my immediate reaction is it's nice to be kept up to date by the club, and it's nice to get more interaction from John Gilligan. That was something that we fed back to him. It's imperative that the club try and keep the fans up to date where possible. There's a couple of bits that stick out. His comments on the CEO and chairman position, which we'll get to in a wee bit on the leadership thing. Comments on Craig Robertson, who's leaving. Comments on Phil Clement and the work he's been doing. But the biggest takeaway is probably the bit about the Pyro, and that'll grab the headlines, which it probably should. And I think there's a wee bit more to that, Andrew, which is worth discussing. But they were the things that there was nothing. Look, nothing ground shattering. I don't earth shattering. I don't think there was anything, majorly problematic. But little updates frequently would help build the what I think is a bit of a void between the club and the support. So it was welcome.
Yeah, I think it's something we've commented on in the past before, that stuff like this helps you set the narrative, and that if it's not the club setting the narrative, someone else will fill the void to do so, whether it's podcasts or news outlets or anything else. I agree with you about the mention of the Pyro. I think you could probably talk about the rest of it as being quite generic. Nothing earth-shattering, as you say. I think the comments about the Pyro, the cost that it's caused to the club, are worth noting, because I don't think you typically expect to see that in an update like this. And yeah, the fact that it does represent a cost to the club, although relatively small potatoes in terms of the overall finances of the club, it's still a couple of weeks of wages for a first team player. So it is significant to mention that. I think the other point I wanted to highlight was the comments around the way that Philippe Clement has had to deal with off-field matters for a while as manager, because he, for lack of a better one, has been the face of the club for a lot of these questions. And I think that's interesting to highlight. I think it's a good thing to have done so, because we've commented on ourselves that he's been dealing with a lot of this external pressure about stuff that really he has no control over. So I think that was interesting to highlight as well. And like you say, it shows a commitment to improve communication as well.
Yeah, absolutely does. Let's talk about the Pyro stuff though, Andrew, first, because the fine you'll have there the exact quotes and the exact fines.
Yeah, so there was a 13,750 fine in euros by UEFA in the match against Lyon, and there was an additional 19,000 euro fine for the game against Malmo. So it's two significant European games, and it's the European football is meant to be an income generator for us, and it's cost us money in this small instance.
Yeah, so it's cost us £25,000, Andrew, and I think we all agree that in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of money. But there's a subtle message here, and Gilligan talks about it and he warns about it. This isn't the end for UEFA. We're now on a list for UEFA, and they'll keep an eye on us. And we've already suffered from stadium closure and bits of stadium closure and things like that. This is Rangers warning the fans that if you don't watch what we're doing, then that's what will happen again. I'm for fan culture. I really am. I'm for singing sections. I'm for safe displays. I'm for tifos and everything. I really am, because I think they generate a fantastic atmosphere. Now, I understand the first thing that people will say is this is Union Bears, get them out. They've caused this, make them pay. Union Bears weren't responsible for the game in Lyon at Ibrox, that display. That was nothing to do with them, although it did emanate from their section. So I think we need to be careful of blaming anyone. All I would say is that we need to be more wary of it as a group of supporters, because UEFA I think the subtext to this is that they will come after us. So we need to be very careful of that. And that's the biggest takeaway that I took. John Gilligan subtly mentions it. And I think that's the biggest thing. £25,000 worth of fines, which roughly translated from €33,000 will be there and thereabouts. Isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things, but our football club could really avoid, stadium closures and stuff like that. And that's what we don't want, because then you're into the, hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of, income lost, and we can't do that. So I think that's a big thing for everyone. Do I like it? Yeah, I do, absolutely. There should be a safe way of doing it all, but when there's not, Andrew, I think we have to listen and be aware of the potential ramifications of any further pyro and things like that if we can't do it with it being, with UEFA being on our side for it. So that's my biggest takeaway from it, and that's what I would be a wee bit worried about.
Yeah, I think, as you say, when with UEFA, it starts with fines, but it doesn't end with fines. And as you say, stadium closures, stand closures, etc., they hang over us. And we're already competing in the Europa as opposed to the Champions League. We're trying to maximise our money there. This doesn't help with that. I'm in agreement with you, by the way, in terms of the fan culture aspect of it. Yeah, great. Like, it builds atmosphere. Ibrox, famously has helped us get to places we probably on paper shouldn't have got to in terms of the backing from the fans. But it's a potential negative that we could really do without, because we don't need any more right now. Rangers aren't short of those at the moment.
No, absolutely not. It's just the potential stand closures and that, Andrew. I think that's a big one for everyone, because financially and for our own credibility, we really don't want that.
Yeah, as I said, one of the other bits in the statement, which again the link will be in the description below, is that the board are determined to fill the chairman and CEO roles as quickly as possible, and have already produced shortlists of very strong and experienced candidates for both roles. So, obviously, this process has been going on for a while at this point. CEO especially, that's been an ongoing process. Although it's positive to hear that things are moving forwards, I think the support will not really be satisfied with that until they actually see something happening. CEO position has been vacant for far too long, I think, for a company, indeed, a business that's our size. So it's not a good state of affairs to find ourselves still waiting on that to happen.
Yeah, I think it was, look, I think it's good to be told that, Andrew, but at the same time, see when he says, I've been reading and hearing a lot about no leadership, but that's not true because myself and George Latham are doing it all. That's a wee bit like saying to us, don't worry, everything's fine. When from the outside of a supporter, we don't see it that way. And it's going to come down to the fact of whether or not you trust this board and the things that have happened the last few years. And I don't think the trust is high. So that statement for me, or that line, could have been worded a bit better. We understand, the anxiety and people watching in, but please know that John and myself and George Latham are doing our very best and leading the club through this too. I think we can word things a wee bit better, because for me, it's a wee bit disingenuous to discredit the supporters' feelings towards that. We're all worried about a CEO. We're all worried about a chairman. Some won't be. You'll get others like myself and others that are a wee bit concerned about what's going on. And that's not against George Latham or John Gilligans. I think both of them are fantastic Rangers men, and they will be doing a good job in the interim to steady the ship. And I think they'll make strong appointments. I really hope they do. But I think that's slightly disingenuous to supporters' feelings, Andrew, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, and again, it's about delivering. We can say there's leadership happening at the club all we like, until we see it happening. A lot of support aren't going to wear that, unfortunately. So, it's about delivering. Good to have the words, but we need to see some actions as well. So, we don't have a lot to talk about beyond this. It was just more for you and me to have a chat and talk about what we thought were the most interesting points. I do want to come back to the point about Phil Clement, because he has been shouldering a lot of outside of football business. The fact that that's been acknowledged by John is good to see, because it has been an unfair position to be in. There's plenty enough pressure just being the Rangers manager, let alone having to be the press office for the Rangers board as well.
Yeah, it is. Listen, I'll say this quite honestly. I'm mightily glad that Philippe Clement is here as manager at the moment and is able to at least have that figurehead and steady the ship, so to speak. Whether or not I rate him on the pitch or anything else isn't the case or discussion at the moment. I'm vitally happy for that, because can you imagine the mess if we didn't have a manager? Who would be appointing him, Andrew? Because none of the directors want to step up. They've got interim guys in there. Who would want the job? The mess of having to start again and everything else. So no, I'm mightily glad. And I know that people aren't happy with Philippe Clement. I'm not silly. I know that he's not perfect. I've criticised in highlights loads of tactical things, loads of things that he said, but it doesn't mean that I'm not at least thankful for the fact the guy's here. We do need to at least understand that side of it. Does he need to be better, playing better, start getting results? Does he need to beat Kelly and Aberdeen away in Bucharest and everything? Oh, of course he does. Will I be majorly grumpy if we don't? And will I start moaning like everybody else? Of course I will. But the fact that the guy's carrying so much of the club on him, I'm very grateful for that, Andrew.
Yeah, I'd completely agree. And we'll obviously be talking to the folks out there again on Friday. We'll be previewing that. They're all must-win games, but
live Q&A tonight, Andrew. Live Q&A tonight on the site with
I suppose we should mention
Andrew
that,
and Andrew. So get your questions in about this, about Philippe Clement. Get them all in. And we're going to try and do updates like this more often, because it's quite handy if people are going home from work, they maybe can't read it. Pop it in your ears for 10 minutes. What the guy's saying about it, here you go. So if there's more stuff like this, if there's any big news, we'll try and do moments like this again. But it's been good, Andrew. Thank you, matey, for joining us.
No, of course. Always happy to duck out for half an hour in the middle of work. As Stevie says, we do have this live Q&A tonight as well. So be live on YouTube, Facebook, and X, or Twitter, as it should be called. So we encourage you to tune into that, ask questions, and see if you can figure out a better way for differentiating between three people called Andrew, because only one of them goes by Andy at the moment, so we're kind of stuck here. So answers to that would be helpful if you've got nothing else to talk to us about. But thank you.
If there's any more Andrews that want a podcast, get in contact. It'd be fun. Let's build up as many as we can.
We need bald men and people called Andy or Andrew, and that would be perfect. We'll just build out a healthy roster of those types of people. Stevie, thank you, my friend, for coming on and having this little chat with me.
Yeah, thanks everyone for watching, tuning in, and I hope it was a worthwhile little experiment.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone watching or listening as well. And we will talk to you soon, I'm sure. So talk to you again. Bye for now.
Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Cliveview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, along with Art of Gold. Thank you for listening or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.